This is a very special honor for me. As everyone in this room knows, the Southern Center is a very special place. What makes it special are its people. Every day, they work hard to provide a prevailing voice for people in our neighborhoods who need it the most. Many in our society generally agree with the idea that everyone should be treated generally equally in our system of justice. But most do nothing to make that aspiration reality. Your presence tonight and your support for the Southern Center speaks volumes to your commitment to see that our justice system better realizes these goals, to treat everyone with dignity and respect. And the Southern Center staff, going back to the very beginning, when Steve Bright, our great friend, resurrected the center back in 1982, and now led so ably by Sarah Tatanchi. The staff daily work with those on the margins to see that they're treated fairly and justly. They don't look away when somebody is charged with a serious offense. They ask, how can we help? Our first awardee tonight, Jenny Sloan, is cut from the same very rare cloth as the Southern Center staff. After completing a federal judicial clerkship in Los Angeles, Ginny went and was a line federal defender in Los Angeles. She represented her clients tenaciously. Happily, for both her and her clients, this was before the sentencing guidelines had taken effect. Her time in the trenches taught her many things, including that the policy judgments made in this city often made or break her clients' fortune or futures. She decided to head east just as the Reagan administration was coming to power. For the next 15 years, Ginny was first a junior and then very soon a very able and senior staffer on the House Judiciary Committee. She had the good fortune to work with members like the late Don Edwards, a terrific boss and member committed to strengthening, not weakening, our civil rights laws. It was during the second half of her service on that committee that she intersected first with the Southern Center for Human Rights and the Capital Offense Bar, who are very proudly in this room tonight, and the Habeas Corpus Bar. It was at that time when the death penalty was a very politically hot issue. Habeas corpus, tragically, had become a four-letter word. Many Republicans and too many Democrats were determined to greatly expand capital punishment and greatly lessen habeas to facilitate execution. I cannot overstate to you tonight how important it was that Jenny was on the Hill at that time. There was no organized lobby to resist the expansion of the death penalty, nor to protect the great writ. And those of us who showed up to try did not know anything about how sausage was really made up there. To say that we knew nothing is to overstate our competence. But Jenny knew what to do. Working with wonderful Hill colleagues, then like Ron Weish, who's here tonight, Jenny helped conceive a banana peel strategy. Again and again, habeas corpus reform, as it was called, should have passed, but didn't. But unfortunately, a very large expansion of capital punishment became the law. Small but very significant victories were won against great odds, like the right to counsel statute that both federal capital defendants and condemned state prisoners could use in habeas corpus proceedings. During her last years on the Hill, Jenny saw the disastrous effects of hyper-partisanship. This prompted her to found and to run for the next 2 decades the Constitution Project, an extraordinary organization and a most unusual one. Her business model was based upon putting people who strongly disagreed together, demand that they conduct themselves as adults, and hammer out policy recommendations. The Constitution Project did not focus on the easy issues. From its inception, Jenny purposely chose to be deeply involved in the tough ones: torture and terrorism, Gideon, and making the right to counsel a reality, immigration reform, and habeas and the death penalty. Well, how did she do it? It took grit, a limitless capacity to go on after people hung up from you after you requested their help, an unmatched determination, often year after year with too few resources. And who did she embrace? Consider Bill White, for one, the former governor of Texas, who at one point in his career was proud of the fact that he succeeded in reducing the death row population in that state by 19 souls. Did Ginny consider him for service on a less contentious issue? Of course not. By the end of her very first cold call to him, asking him to help, he agreed and joined the death penalty task force and served well as its chair. Jenny never regretted that phone call to Texas. Now, Jenny would be a very worthy recipient of this great honor, and it is a great honor, if that was all she had done. Time does not permit me to describe adequately the enormous impact for good that she has had throughout her career. But I might have to say a few things. Jenny, I've asked, there were colleagues of yours all across the country who wish to be here tonight. And because they represent clients, because they have to go to court tomorrow to the prison, they cannot be here. But they are so pleased that you are here tonight to be honored in this way. And Jenny, for all the many good things you've done, I need to specifically mention your unsparing efforts to preserve habeas corpus. I'm not speaking about your work solely, those many hundreds of hours in those difficult years in the 90s before the dreadful amendments in 1996 were passed. I'm talking about 2004, when Senator Kyle very quietly dropped in amendments just before the 4th of July break in the Senate to really end any meaningful habeas corpus reform. He would have succeeded, but Ginny was on the job. She got the word out, and before a Republican Senate Judiciary Committee figured out a way to stop those amendments from becoming law. Ginny, like Southern Senator lawyers, you've never allowed yourself to look the other way. I have lost count of the number of amicus briefs the Constitution either filed or initiated in capital cases in the Supreme Court or in other courts around the country to ensure that one lonely inmate's case was taken more seriously. Those briefs, in many cases, had enormous impact, both upon the court and upon the court of public opinion. I know, because my client Delma Banks came within 10 minutes of execution that horrible night in March in 2003, and but for that brief that you helped us get, there's no doubt that he would have been executed. And finally, we recognize your mentorship to numerous young women who've come to Washington to work to promote a healthy civic society. Well, under your wing, Jenny, they've learned how to make a difference. We could not be more proud than to give you the Frederick Douglass Award tonight. Thank you.